Hey guys, today we're going to talk all about, do we pay down the loan or do we invest? So that's the big question that we're going to be answering today. But if this is your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Michael Foley. I'm a certified financial planner and a student loan professional. I'm also the son of two doctors and, really design lifestyle creep here to help healthcare workers and their families really to be more intentional in their finances and hopefully help to inspire them to live more humble and quiet lives. So let's dive in today. So the big question that we always get, should we be investing this money or should we take extra money and put this down towards this loan that we have, right? And so I think this is the big question, but I think this is also a question to be answering after we've taken care of the basics in our finances. So if you haven't checked out my video on the RICE method, I highly encourage you to check it out. We really want to make sure that we're taking care of the basics in our finances prior to, trying to go all in on pay down or all in on investing. This is for extra money that we have on top of the basics, right? So, but really when we're trying to answer these decisions, I really like to go back to just some tried and true, time-tested principles that we can use to help us, enable us to make good financial decisions moving forward. And so the best place to find that, in my opinion, is the Bible, right? So let's look at what does the Bible say about that? And so it's kind of interesting, the Bible does give, some big warnings around debt. And so I think it would be prudent of us to at least acknowledge that and hear it out and see if there's some data that suggests that and supports that as well. So, Proverbs 22 says the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is the slave to the lender. So that's not great. We don't want to be a slave to someone, right? Is indicative of a lot of pain and other strife that could come with that. In Romans 13, Paul says, owe no one anything except to love each other, right? And then also in Psalms 37, it says the wicked borrower borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. So, as you can see, it doesn't say that debt is terrible, don't take out any debt, right? It offers some cautions and some warnings around debt. And so, I was really interested in trying to see, I love when we can find research that actually supports some of the things that, things that come up in the Bible, right? And so then that's really something that cues me in that maybe we should be paying attention to this, right? So I did some research on it. Listen to some of these stats around people who have debt. So it says, in some of these studies, people with debt are 3 times more likely to struggle with worry-induced depression, anxiety, and stress. Not great. And then another, Dr. Salsa, a psychiatrist out of Cornell, says that ongoing financial stress caused by debt translates to chronic stress, which can lead to depression, anxiety, high blood pressure, back pain, stomach ulcers, etc. So there's a lot of tangible, things that this can create, and from a health standpoint. It says 54% of U.S. adults with debt say that they always or often feel stressed because of their debt. 60% say that their financial stress has led them to disagreements in their relationships. And then, 72% stated that they were very or somewhat likely to accumulate more debt when experiencing stress in their finances, which I thought was kind of ironic, right? If you're stressed because of the debt and then it leads you to taking out more debt, which is just wild to see. And then it says that due to debt-related stress, 48% reported sleep problems, 40% had higher anxiety, 38% led diminished social lives, 34% experienced depression. This is not great. These are actual, studies that are showing that, how much debt can actually impact our health and our well-being. And so it's like, having debt paid off or relieved, can improve your health. Apparently it can improve your relationships, and then, obviously too, self-confidence of, not having that and, not feeling guilty when you're spending money because you have debt as well. So just some things to be looking at. But so does that mean that we should just put everything else that we have towards paying off our debt? Well, not so fast. We gotta take, okay, what are kind of the principles that, are cautioning us around debt? Well, now how can we pair that up with some of the financial principles that we have of, how much we can, what we want to be doing from an opportunity cost. So, opportunity cost is, if I'm doing this with my money, what else could I have been doing with that money and which one is going to be better for us, right? So that's something that, I ran the numbers of just to say, all right, what if we put this in the context of a mortgage, right? So let's say we're going to run two scenarios, okay? So scenario one is we take someone has a $700,000 mortgage, and we're going to have them pay off their loan in 15 years, okay? And then from year 16 all the way to 30, we're going to have them take what they were putting towards their mortgage and invest it for the back 15 years, okay? So pay down the first 15 years and then take that same amount of money and invest it for the past 15 years, and we'll see where we land at the 30th year. Now we're going to compare that to scenario two, which is where we're going to make the minimum payment on the mortgage, and then we're going to take the difference to what we would be paying in scenario one so that it's the same in both scenarios, and we're going to invest that all the way for the whole 30 years. So make the minimum 30-year payment on the mortgage, and then we're going to invest for the full 30 years. And so, as you might expect, the interest rate plays a big factor in this. And so, how much growth on the investment and how much the cost is on the mortgage, right? So if we just run a consistent 6% growth rate on the investment, so, some might argue that we could get higher returns in certain investments, right? But for this example, we're going to run 6%, so we can run them, side by side here. Now, if we ran the investment at 6% in both scenarios, and in the let's say this first case, let's run it at 2.75% for the mortgage. So you got it right, during COVID or pre-COVID when we had these killer interest rates, got a 2.75% mortgage, and so it's either, hey, we're going to pay this thing off over 15 years, and then invest, or we're going to invest and pay down all the way. And so, as you can imagine, if we're comparing paying down more aggressively a 2.75% loan versus investing and potentially getting 6%, the investing all the way along does come out better, right? And so it actually comes out better to the tune of almost $500,000 over the course of 30 years. So if you actually take scenario two, where we're actually saving and investing all the way throughout, you're coming out almost $500,000 ahead of scenario one, where we pay off the loan aggressively over the first 15 years and then invest thereafter. So just kind of interesting to see that the numbers are definitely supporting the invest and pay down at the same time, right? But now let's crank that interest rate up to where they're actually at right now, up to like a 7% interest loan. And so if we have a 7% interest loan on the same situation, the tables turn, right? So now if we paid that loan off over the 15 years, that scenario one is actually coming out ahead by over $200,000. So now you're much better off by paying off that mortgage more aggressively over the first 15 years and then investing thereafter. So what does this really tell us? Is this something that we should be paying off the loans if it's above 6%? Potentially, right? But I think the biggest questions that we got to ask are, okay, what is the interest rate and what is the actual difference that we're going to have between our scenarios? What is our opportunity cost that we're leaving on the table? And then you got to answer that question of, is that opportunity cost, the potential difference between not investing versus paying off the debt, is that worth it to you? Right? That's the question you got to ask is, okay, me not having this debt, is that more valuable than $500,000, and potentially having better relationships, less stress in your finances, other things, right? Maybe for some, but others might say, heck no, I'm going to get that extra $500,000, right? And that would be totally justified, right? And so I think it's more of a personal decision around your emotional disposition around your debt that I think you have to weigh into this, and then use the financial side of it, of what is that opportunity cost to enable your decision. But we also see some other positives of people not having debt. I was just thinking about it when I was considering making extra payments on our own personal mortgage, and I was like, what, if we pay aggressively, we can get our house paid off, right? I'm probably going to be a lot less likely, and our whole family, we're going to be a lot less likely to want to upgrade our house in the future, right? And so, if we paid off our house, over a certain period of time, yes, hey, maybe we're leaving some money on the table from the investment front. But, if for our situation, we're probably going to save a ton of money if we can make this our forever home and not go buy that bigger house next, which is actually going to set us back. So sometimes there's other variables that can factor in that oftentimes getting rid of the debt a little bit quicker can be beneficial. So again, you got to, work with your advisor, and we're happy to help walk you through these different, conversations in your situations. But I think we need to take the emotion and not just make an emotional decision, and look at the financial side of it, and not just make a financial decision, because we got to marry those together and really define the best plan for you and your family and what's going to be best for you. So hopefully this has been helpful for you, and helping to identify, should we pay a little bit more aggressively, or should we, just invest along the way. Hopefully this is helping you to also live more humbly and quietly in your own lives. So thank you guys for joining, and we'll hope to see you in the next episode.